Hi students, in this session we will see in detail about backgrounders, columns and columnists. First, let us discuss about backgrounder. As the name suggests, a backgrounder is a form of writing where the background information or a description of events leading up to the latest event are given. Usually, a backgrounder is used along with the main item of an important happening. For example, a newspaper has been covering a murder story for over a month. The paper has carried various news items related to the murder all these days. These include the autopsy report, a reaction of murder victims' relatives, protests, etc. At last, when the culprit has been nabbed, this is the major development as far as the case is concerned. So, when the newspaper reports the incident, it is necessary to give all the details related to the crime right from day one. Here, the details of the crime is the backgrounder. The backgrounder is generally a straight piece of writing, either in the form of chronology or in the form of text. Comments or personal opinion is avoided since the purpose of giving a backgrounder is to provide proper perspective by filling up the gaps in information. The mention of facts and figures, distances, dates, names of places and people is a must in a backgrounder. The source of a backgrounder is generally a yearbook, a reference book, the internet or any other agency. In case of the demise of a prominent person, an obituary or life sketch is used along with the main news. This is also in the nature of a backgrounder. Such obituaries are often written by persons who may not be journalists but fellow professionals or politicians or actors, dramatists, writers and so on. For beginners, writing backgrounders is a good exercise in learning straight writing, putting facts and figures in right chronological order, and also learn what needs to be included and what should be kept out, depending on the importance or the occasion of the backgrounder. Next, we will discuss about columns. In journalism, a column is a recurring feature by the same author in a newspaper, magazine or website. In contrast to objective news stories, columns are characterized by voice, personality and opinions of the writer. The writer can be a journalist or an expert in the particular field about which he or she is writing. Though given creative leeway in how they write, columnists are usually assigned to specific sections such as sports, politics, environment, education, human rights, etc. There are different types of columns based on the subject. Now, let us have a look at the types of columns. First one is reporting in-depth columns. In this column, background, perspective and interpretation are given to various happenings, usually already presented in hard news. Here, current news events are related to the past and also to the future. Second one is opinionated columns. In these columns, columnists write opinion pieces related to current issues. This can be on politics, economics, education, environment, etc. Third category is humorous columns. Here, columnist tries to find the humorous aspects in life to amuse readers. Sometimes this explains the event more clearly than thousands of words explaining the matter. Columns contain some satirical comments. Next category is diary columns. The diary columns come from public figures who are talking about their interesting incidents with others. Another type is sports column. As the name suggests, sports column deals with expert articles related to sports. Next one is question and answer column. This column could be a medical column in which a qualified doctor answers queries on health. It could be a sober column in which readers ask questions about their personal problems and get appropriate answers. Under this style of column writing, a columnist gives a question and then answers it. This style of writing a column gives ample opportunities to the columnist to raise questions of national and paramount importance and then answer them in easy and understandable style and language. In this way, a good columnist paves the way for instruction, teaching and improving educational values and standard of the general masses in an effective way. Another category is political columns. These columns handle political matters and are written in pursuance of the editorial policy of the newspaper. These are considered to be one of the most read columns. Next category is editorial column. You all might have heard about editorial columns and come across these on the editorial pages of a newspaper. They are handled by experienced columnists. Then comes specialized columns. These types of columns are generally limited and confined to a single subject or topic. Specialized columns are arranged in accordance with the circumstances. Like specialized columns include legal column, religious column, astrology column, sports column, fashion column, medical column, women's column, students or children's column. In the specialized columns, there is simplicity of language and style, and no literary tastes are added unnecessarily, nor do they reflect any personal or individual trends. Next comes literary columns. You might have come across literary columns while reading newspapers. These columns deal with topics on the national and foreign literature and literary trends, literary and educational problems, literary congresses held in and outside the country. This column gives a detailed report about the activities taking place on the national as well as the international arena. Literary columns enrich and enlighten the reader about the literary trends and upsurge of certain literary movements in the world. These are some types of columns that appear in newspapers and magazines. Here, you can have a look at some columns that have appeared in the print media. Writing a column requires clarity of thought, the ability to communicate a message clearly and simply, and an engaging style. First comes the decision about the topic, which must lend itself to comment, ridicule, satire, or whatever the nature of the column. It may be inspired by a particular quote from a public figure, a story in the news, a report, an unusual occurrence, a piece of bureaucratic absurdity, a domestic incident, or a sporting controversy. The column must be planned so that the writer knows before he or she starts just what they are going to say. There must not be too many ideas. Determine why you are writing a column. Figure out what you or your editor want the column to be about. Do you want to entertain or inform? Asking yourself why you are writing a column will help you figure out what you want to write about. If you want to entertain, you might want to write about humorous topics or make a serious topic comical. Wanting to inform your audience might mean your column is more factual, educational, and serious. Write about your opinion. Unlike more traditional forms of journalism, such as news reports or articles, a column is by nature biased and opinionated. Think of a topic that you are passionate about and that you have a strong opinion on when figuring out your content. It will be a lot easier to write a column if you care about the subject. Although a column is biased, you should still have journalistic integrity and not maliciously slander anyone. Choose relevant topics. News stories come and go very quickly. When writing a column on recent events, move fast. You will want to write a column about a recent event within 24 to 48 hours after the event happened. Choose relevant topics that you have good perspective about. For example, if a political debate happens on Sunday, you want a column on your viewpoint of the debate written by Monday or Tuesday. Write about people. Choose topics for your column where you can write about people. Using real people in your column gives it a stronger impact and helps you prove your point. Writing about concepts and policies without using names does not have as much of an effect as using real names. For example, if you are writing a column on your opinions on immigration, use the story of a local immigrant in your column. Localize and personalize your column. If you are writing a column for a local publication, then make sure to give issues a local point of view as much as you can. You can also use your own experiences to show you understand something from a first-hand experience. For example, if you are talking about problems in the education system, don't be too general. Focus on the schools in your town and the problems kids in your town have faced or still face at schools. Next point to remember is to stick to a theme. Keep your column about the same general topic, that may be politics, environment, local issues, etc. However, you should have variation within your theme. Your readers might get bored of your column if they feel like they are reading the same thing repeatedly. For example, if your theme is environment, you can talk about forests in one piece, climate change in another, and man-animal conflict in another. Write about personal topics. Don't be afraid to write articles on personal topics. Your views are out in the open in columns. Write about topics that allow you to reveal and expose yourself. This personalization and vulnerability is what will make readers keep reading your column. For example, if you are passionate about helping the homeless population, write about your feelings on homelessness in your column. If you have 5 dogs, then write a piece about dogs and include information about your own experiences with dogs. Gear your column towards your audience. Writing a column for teenage girls is going to be a lot different than writing a column for business owners. Think about your audience when writing a column and how they pertain to your topic. Next point to remember is to write clearly. Don't complicate your column with confusing and technical language. Keep your writing simple. Use short sentences and paragraphs. Start a new paragraph whenever you have a new thought, even if that means a paragraph is only a sentence or two. Use first person. In a column, don't be afraid to talk about yourself as yourself. When writing your opinions, say it is your opinion. Don't refer to yourself or quote yourself in third person. For example, you could write, I find it horrific that our taxes are not being used to help more homeless people find jobs. Next point to remember is write the way you talk. A column is more personal than other types of journalism. Your language in a column does not have to be as formal. While maintaining good grammar, keep your tone casual and personal. Write an attention-grabbing lead. The lead is the opening section of your column. Unlike traditional news reporting, your column should have a descriptive and attention-grabbing lead. Next point is use facts. Your column should not be a huge list of facts, but you should back up your statements with facts to make your opinions more concrete. Even though a column is not a news report, you still might want to conduct interviews and do online research to back up your points. You will be taken more seriously if you know what you are talking about. Be passionate but have a solution. A column is the perfect time to be passionate about your point of view. Share your opinions and viewpoints loud and clear. However, you can't just write a column of you complaining about an issue. You need to finish off your column with solutions. The audience of your column wants your opinion and they want answers. For example, I am disappointed and disgusted by the number of homeless veterans living on our streets. Let us raise the taxes of the wealthy and use that money to help the homeless. Columns are there to get a reaction agreement, disagreement, amusement, enlightenment. The columns must sustain its theme. If it wanders, the reader will wander off. The good column will have a clear identity so that the readers will feel they know the writer, his or her prejudices, enthusiasms and obsessions. Having seen various types of columns, we can now have a quick look at columnists. A columnist is a person who writes for a publication in a series, creating an article that usually offers commentary and opinions. A columnist may write exclusively for one newspaper at a time or have his or her columns published in several newspapers simultaneously. Unlike news stories and reports that are meant to be objective and unbiased, columns carry the personal opinions of the writers which impart to them a unique characteristic. Columnists have to be aware of the current trends in their respective fields and should constantly be on the lookout for topics of interest to the readers. They have to research and gather information on relevant issues and give their own commentary or interpretation. Now, we will have a glimpse of some famous Indian columnists. First one is Mukul Keshavan. Mukul Keshavan is an Indian historian, novelist and political and social essayist. His columns have appeared in the Telegraph, Cricinfo, Outlook magazine, Mint and several other periodicals and journals. Over the years, Mukul Keshavan has become one of the most lucid voices of liberalism. But the genius of his columns is that they are not merely political. He can write with equal expertise on sports as well. Second person is Ramachandra Guha. Ramachandra Guha is an Indian writer and historian whose research interests include environment, social issues, economics, politics and contemporary history. He is also a columnist for the Telegraph, Hindustan Times and Hindi daily newspaper Amar Ujala. A regular contributor to various academic journals, Guha has also written for the Caravan and Outlook magazines. Next person is Pratap Bhanu Mehta. Pratap Bhanu Mehta is an Indian academic. Mehta has published widely in the fields of political theory, intellectual history, constitutional law, politics and society in India and also international politics. His scholarly articles have appeared in leading international referred journals. Mehta is an editorial consultant to leading national daily Indian Express and his columns have appeared in dailies including the Financial Times, the Telegraphs, the International Herald, Tribune and the Hindu. He is also on the editorial boards of many academic journals including the American Political Science Review, the Journal of Democracy and India and Global Affairs. Next person is Ashok Malik. Ashok Malik is a senior Indian analyst and commentator and distinguished fellow at the Observer Research Foundation, one of the leading public policy think tanks in India. A frequent columnist, he writes for a number of national and international publications. His areas of interest cover politics, India's political economy and foreign policy. He began his career in the Telegraph newspaper in Calcutta in 1991 and subsequently worked for many leading publications including the Times of India, India Today and Indian Express. In 2006, he embarked on a career as a self-employed columnist, serving at different points as a consulting editor to the Pioneer and Tehelka. Next person is Swaminathan Ankleshwar Iyer. Swaminathan is an Indian journalist and columnist. He is consulting editor for the Economic Times and writes regularly for the Economic Times and the Times of India. Iyer writes a weekly column titled Swanomics in the Times of India, where he discusses economic and political issues pertaining to India and the world. Next person is C. Rajamohan. Rajamohan is an Indian academic, journalist and foreign policy analyst. He was Strategic Affairs Editor of the Indian Express, New Delhi, and before that served as Diplomatic Editor and the Washington correspondent of the Hindu newspaper. He is a columnist for the Indian Express. His foreign policy perspective is broadly liberal and pragmatist, arguing for closer ties between India and key global powers such as the United States, Russia and China. He has also argued for using greater economic linkages to improve India's troubled ties with Pakistan. Next person is Mihir Swaroop Sharma. Mihir Swaroop Sharma is an Indian economist who is Senior Fellow at the Observer Research Foundation. Before that, he was the opinion editor for Business Standard and a columnist for the Indian Express. Next person is Shashi Tharoor. Shashi Tharoor is a novelist, columnist, orator, diplomat and politician. He is the author of hundreds of columns and articles in publications such as the New York Times, the Washington Post, Time, Newsweek and the Times of India. He was a contributing editor for Newsweek International for 2 years. He wrote columns in the Asian Age, Deccan Chronicle, the Indian Express, the Hindu and the Times of India. Next person is Shobha De. Shobha De is one of India's most popular writers. She proved her expertise as a model, a copywriter, a journalist, a socialite, a scriptwriter and a best-selling novelist. Politically Incorrect, which has been appearing as a column in the Times of India, carries her sharp observations on politics, society, economy and relationships. These are some of the famous columnists. There are several others too. You can read their articles from the internet and also from printed publications. So, in this session, we learned about backgrounders, columns and columnists. In the next session, we will discuss the trends in sectional news.